and welcome to Tucker Carlson Tonight. When Democratic politicians across this country all of a sudden started to pull back their mask mandates, they did it virtually overnight, and of course they did it in unison, we naturally assumed that new polling had to be behind it. Someone at the DNC must have seen terrifying public opinion numbers and decided to abandon Project Quarantine before the midterm elections. That made sense to us. We explained that theory on the show last night. We still think it's probably pretty true. But it's also clear, as of tonight, that there is another explanation for this. Democrats in this country are looking north to their friends in the ruling party of Canada, and what they see there scares them. Canada's working class has finally rebelled after years of relentless abuse. Truck drivers are threatening to topple Justin Trudeau's creepy little government with their big rigs, and they may succeed, actually. The protests against Justin Trudeau's vaccine mandates have been far more effective than anyone in charge imagined. For Democrats in the United States, that's a pretty obvious lesson. Over the past 48 hours, Canadian truckers have blocked the major trade routes between their country and ours. Last night, farmers driving heavy agricultural equipment shut down the highways at the Manitoba border with the United States. You're seeing footage now from the town of Emerson, Manitoba. 1,100 miles away, a similar scene on the border of Ontario in the United States. Green tractors with Canadian flags lining the highway in protest. But the most meaningful blockade of all is taking place right now on the Ambassador Bridge. That's the privately owned span that connects Detroit to Windsor, Ontario. If you live in the upper Midwest, you know it well. A quarter of all the trade between the United States and Canada, one another's biggest trading partners, that's billions of dollars, comes across that bridge. And as Fox's Molly Line is reporting from Ottawa, that bridge is now completely shut down.
We're Canadian, and we want to be free Canadians.
Increasing concern spreading through Canada and now the U.S. as the Freedom Convoy threatens trade along the border. Truckers blocking traffic at the Ambassador Bridge connecting Detroit and Ontario. A second crossing linking Alberta and Montana also shut down by protesters, calling for an end to all COVID restrictions and vaccine mandates.
We want freedom, freedom of all mandates, and that's what we're fighting for.
The Ambassador Bridge is the busiest international crossing in North America, carrying 25% of all trade between Canada and the U.S.
We want freedom, the truckers are saying, freedom from mandates. It's a very straightforward ask, but so far the truckers don't have that freedom, and so their blockade continues. So far, that blockade has forced the Ford Motor Company to shut down one of its manufacturing plants and to operate another plant with a skeleton crew. Toyota says it won't be able to manufacture vehicles in Ontario for the rest of the week. General Motors has canceled multiple shifts at its plant in Lansing, Michigan, due to part shortages. So this protest is less than a week old, and already it is causing deep pain to at least one global industry. It's hard to overstate the historical significance of what we're watching right here. The Canadian Trucker Convoy is the single most successful human rights protest in a generation. If nothing else, it has been a very useful reminder to our entitled ruling class that working class men can be pushed, but only so far. When they push back, it hurts. It turns out that truck drivers are more important to a country's future than, say, diversity consultants or even MSNBC contributors. Who knew? The White House has no interest in knowing. According to the Associated Press tonight, the Biden administration is, quote, urging the Trudeau government to, quote, use its federal powers to stop this protest, to end the truckers' protest. In other words, crush them by force. Politico is reporting that Biden officials are coordinating with Canadian authorities to, quote, establish alternate traffic routes around the protesters. That's Scranton Joe, the pro-union guy, shutting down a labor action. Pete Buttigieg is the completely incompetent transportation secretary in this country. Apparently he's in charge of this effort. What Mayor Pete does not realize is it's not so easy. Truck drivers know a lot more about roads than McKinsey consultants do. An alternative border crossing in Alberta, for example, has already been totally shut down. They thought of that already, Mayor Pete. The Blue Water Bridge, which connects Ontario to Port Huron, Michigan, has been reporting delays tonight of nearly 5 hours. Now, there is an obvious way to fix this problem. Matthew Maroon, who's the owner of the Ambassador Bridge into Michigan, just spelled it out for Justin Trudeau, who's not terribly bright. End the vaccine mandates, and the bridge reopens. It's not hard. But Justin Trudeau won't. And he's decided he doesn't have to, because the truckers, as he's explained, have no legitimate complaint. They're racists, so we're not required to listen to them. Here is Trudeau in the Canadian Parliament on Monday.
The people of Ottawa don't deserve to be harassed in their own neighborhoods. They don't deserve to be confronted with the inherent violence of a swastika flying on a street corner, or a Confederate flag, or the insults and jeers just because they're wearing a mask. That's not who Canadians are.
Oh, so they're not even really Canadians. They're Nazis. So you don't have to hear anything they say. They don't even belong here. Maybe we'll intern them or expel them. Trudeau's state broadcasters had been repeating these lies over and over and over again for maximum effect. Pravda parroting Brezhnev. That's what they do. What's striking, however, is that the media in our country claim to be independent, but they've been doing the very same thing. Watch.
Some of the organizers of this protest, which, as I mentioned, started more than a week ago, they do want to overthrow the government.
Canadian officials calling the situation a, quote, nationwide insurrection.
The police chief says COVID protests are a, quote, nationwide insurrection driven by madness.
A nationwide insurrection driven by madness.
And just think of the language. I know it sounds familiar to you, right? A threat to democracy, an insurrection, sedition.
The police say that they are under-resourced and they are overwhelmed. They have said that this city is under siege.
It's not just truckers. There's a lot of, I've heard there's QAnon supporters in the crowd.
Residents that I have spoken to who say they feel terrorized, intimidated.
It's a cult.
There are QAnon supporters in the crowd. It's a cult. They're Nazis and they're crazy. Insurrectionists on the Edmund Pettus Bridge. Imagine. Now, they're using these smears because typically they work. Just dismiss these people. Don't listen to them. They didn't go to college. But what Justin Trudeau apparently didn't count on is that a handful of independent journalists are committing journalism inside Canada. And a free press works. That's why we have it, or did.